Hello, everyone. My name is Demi Albus. I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager in Microsoft Enterprise Mobility and Security Marketing team. Today, we are going to cover how we can gain visibility, control, as well as threat protection for cloud applications with our Cloud Access Security Broker solution, Microsoft Cloud App Security. Let's go ahead and get started. The world before cloud and mobile devices was a different world. We were able to control everything within the confines of the enterprise. Users had single identities. They used the devices that we gave them. They didn't have mobile devices back then. They used the applications that IT teams provisioned them to use. And finally, the data more or less stayed within the perimeters of the organization. But after digital transformation, this has changed significantly. Users are using mobile devices. They're accessing corporate network from a variety of different locations as well as devices, and they're accessing applications, and they're using applications that we may not provision them to. Data is traveling to many more locations today, not necessarily for malicious reasons. Users want to be productive. They want to make sure that they get the work done. We are in this digital transformation, and we think that the work is going to get less, but actually we're working way many more long hours, and we try to get more productive and more efficient every day. Of course, there are the scenarios of threat actors and insiders, but most of the time, it's those innocent users' mistakes that can cause security issues. We see a lot of users using several different SaaS applications. On average, an organization has 28 cloud storage applications and 41 collaboration applications routinely used. Users are not doing this, again, for malicious reasons. They just want to be productive. And we are not only talking about cloud storage applications like Box or Dropbox here. We have more than 25 cloud storage applications used on average. More than 80% of the employees admit using non-approved SaaS applications for work purposes. When we talk to you, we always get this critical question: how do I gain visibility into this? How can I make sure that my users are productive and they get the work done when I'm making sure my data is secure as well? Well, the market is trying to attempt to solve the problem. There are so many different security and mobility and identity categories arise in the last 10 years. It started with mobile device and application management. We always had security, information, and event management solutions, but they evolved to include user and entity behavioral analytics. Identity became a key problem. Access, protecting access and getting the context of the access became very important. Information rights management. How do we prevent data loss? So many different categories, so many different point solutions. Yes, we got these solutions, but then how do we make sense of all of them? How do we create integration between all of these different point solutions? This is why in Microsoft, we want to approach this problem of protecting identities, devices, applications, and data with a holistic and an identity-driven approach. If you think about all the different elements of the benefits that we provide with Microsoft Enterprise Mobility and Security, there are three specific areas. One, protection at the front door. How do we protect the identities? How do we protect the access right at the front door? Access needs to be context sensitive. Not everybody should access the network. The second piece is protecting your data anywhere. Once users log into the network, how do I protect the data? How do I protect that data when it goes to mobile devices? How do I protect that data when it goes to cloud applications? How do I prevent data loss? How do I protect data from user mistakes? And finally, no matter what we do, there will be a breach. Every organization is an interesting target for cybersecurity attackers, and we should all be in an assume breach mode. We need to detect and remediate attacks because there is always a gap between the breach moment and when the attacker accesses critical information. We use sophisticated and advanced technologies for identifying these attackers, on-premises and in the cloud. And we call all of this Microsoft Enterprise Mobility and Security, which is a single suite that provides that holistic, identity-driven security to protect your identities, devices, applications, and data, both on-premises and in the cloud. Today, we are going to focus on specifically SaaS applications and how we can protect data in them. There are some critical questions that we need to ask ourselves. We need to think about cloud applications. A lot of times, cloud applications are out of sight, out of mind. And some IT teams do not even want to know about them because they are afraid what they're going to find out. However, that doesn't take the problem away. We need to think about how we can gain visibility into cloud apps used in our organization. And we need to figure out which ones are bad and which ones are good. We need to control and limit access to them. We shouldn't block our users to access cloud applications because they will access it and they will have workarounds anyway. We need to find intelligent ways to make access context sensitive to protect the data in them. We should think about how we can prevent data loss in cloud applications and stay compliant with key regulations. And finally, just like on-premises, the data in these cloud applications are vulnerable for cybersecurity threats. For this, we need to use sophisticated technologies. This is why we have a solution called Microsoft Cloud App Security. It is Microsoft's Cloud Access Security Broker solution. It is comprehensive, it is intelligent, it uses advanced sophisticated tools. And it brings that visibility, real-time control, as well as threat protection to your cloud applications. It also integrates with your SIEM solutions, your access management solutions, your DLP and information protection solutions. Because going back to the earlier slide where we talked about there are so many solutions out there and they're all point solutions, our approach to this market is to provide you a solution that integrates with the current information protection, DLP, and threat protection solutions you have on premises, as well as integrating with our own stack with enterprise mobility and security solutions to provide you an end-to-end solution. Microsoft Cloud App Security provides 4 key benefits. The first one is discovering the applications and providing you a risk assessment. If you'd like to prevent data loss, you need to see the applications and the data that goes to these applications first. The second piece is we help you to control access to these applications in real time. If a user is coming from an unmanaged device and trying to access critical data, you may not let that user to download it to that device. And we can provide that granular controls to you. We also provide you data loss prevention. You can set granular level policies to protect the data, to govern the data, and to prevent data loss. And finally, we use sophisticated, advanced behavioral analytics and machine learning technologies to help you detect threats with these applications. And again, we integrate with the solutions that you have. We integrate within Microsoft Enterprise Mobility and Security. We have a unique integration with Azure Active Directory. We have a unique integration with Azure Information Protection, as well as Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph. And this is not only for Microsoft cloud applications. We know that your environment is heterogeneous. You have several different cloud applications, and Cloud App Security is a cross-SaaS security solution. Let's start with discovery and risk assessment. Visibility is key to prevent any problems in cloud applications. So first, we discover the type of SaaS applications your users are using. And we also provide you a risk assessment, so you don't have to do this on premises yourself, especially with the growing number of SaaS applications in your organization. And also we provide you ongoing analytics. Let's dive into this. We discover more than 15,000 cloud applications, and we don't use agents on user devices to get this data. We get this information from your firewalls, as well as your proxies. You just have to upload the logs, and then we will be able to see all traffic going into these applications. We also provide a cloud app risk assessment. You can see it more in detail here. For each application, we provide a detailed risk assessment. This is not done by crowdsourcing, similar to some competitors. We actually use 60 different parameters for you to see whether this application is, for instance, complying with multi-factor authentication or complying with key regulations. So now you can make an educated decision about whether you would like to accept this application used in your organization or whether you would like to block it. This information is very helpful. We also provide you ongoing analytics on the application as well. If a user is uploading and downloading terabytes of data within a couple transactions, obviously that's a problem. That may be indication of a breach. We can detect that through our discovery ongoing analysis. You may say, well, I'm worried about my user's privacy as we are getting this information. We have a feature called log anonymization. Log anonymization helps you to protect your user's privacy by anonymizing their usernames. So admins only see an anonymized text instead of compromising users' privacy as they're getting this data. And finally, we provide you detailed and advanced investigation tools. If there's an issue, if you'd like to drill in by user or IP address, you can all do that through the discovery analysis. Second key piece is providing conditional access or limiting access to cloud applications. We always say access needs to be context sensitive. We cannot only just trust the user when they put their username and password, because we know that passwords are not really an effective way to decide whether that user is really that user or a cybersecurity attacker. This is why we look at the conditions the user is coming from. Which device that they're using? Is this device managed or unmanaged? Which location user is coming from? Is this a new location that we are seeing this user's interactions with the network? What about the applications that they're accessing? Is this high business impact, medium business impact, the data that they're accessing? All these conditions are very important in terms of what we are going to let the user access, what type of controls we are going to let them as they are getting into the network. Not only do we look into these, we also look at our data coming from Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph. We have machine learning. We use user and entity behavioral analytics. We have terabytes of data that are coming in that we actually put to use to make sure that we have the right controls as the user is trying to access data. This is all through Azure Active Directory conditional access. And this is all customizable. You can decide what type of controls that you would like to have for a specific access situation. In the past, controls were quite binary. You either allow access or you deny access. Then multi-factor authentication came in, or two-factor authentication. And then we had MFA fatigue. For every single sign-in, every organization was requiring MFA. And this was difficult because every single time you had to enter a code. While we can use MFA intelligently. If the user risk or the sign-in risk is high, then we can push the user to MFA. But if all conditions are normal, then we can allow access without causing any fatigue. If you do not like the conditions that the user is coming from, you can push to forced password reset. We recently also added a new control, limiting access. Through integration of Azure Active Directory and Microsoft Cloud App Security, we can limit access to cloud applications. Azure Active Directory also helps you to limit access to SharePoint. So what does this mean? If a user is, let's say, coming from an unmanaged device, we may not let them to download a critical file to their, or I should say, a sensitive file to that specific device. This is all done through a proxy, which is not only controlling the access, but controlling the session itself, the activities that the user is taking within the session. And this is done by Microsoft Cloud App Security's reverse proxy technology, which is currently in public preview. So how does this work? You set some context-aware session policies. It actually starts in the Azure Active Directory console. You identify Cloud App Security as a control, Cloud App Security proxy as a control, and Azure AD conditional access. When certain conditions are set in Azure AD, then Cloud App Security takes that information and proxy pretty much walks with the user during the session. You can set policies to say, if a user is coming from certain conditions, do not let them to download a specific file, or just protect the file when they want to download it. You can enforce browser-based view-only mode for low-trust sessions. You can classify, label, and protect on download, and you can gain visibility into unmanaged device activity. This is all done through a unique integration with Azure Active Directory. You can limit activities performed within user sessions by this unique integration. We're directly integrated to Azure AD console. You can see a policy here. We're blocking the access of users coming from an unmanaged device. And you can see the action that I'm taking here. They're allowing or blocking the user. And also how I'm going to send alerts to admins in the organization about this situation. Next piece is information protection. Data loss prevention is so important these days, especially with the number of cybersecurity attacks that we are seeing, the inflection point that we are seeing in cybersecurity space, as well as the key regulations coming into effect. If I can't know about the cloud applications and the data in them, then I can lose control of my critical data. While we provide data loss prevention and information protection in cloud applications, once we identify them and once you deploy them in Cloud App Security, now you can set granular level policies. You can set activity, anomaly detection, app discovery, discovery anomaly, and file policies. Once you set these policies, you can enforce them. You can have automatic enforcement. You can scan for advanced alerts. Let's say if you see a file that should not be in a cloud application, it should not be shared publicly, you can protect the file. You can put the file into quarantine. You can make a link private and a user made it by mistake. You can remove a collaborator for a file. And this is all, again, integrated with Azure Information Protection. We already provide a data loss prevention and information protection solution with Azure, and we integrate rather than trying to provide you several different point solutions that don't talk to each other. With Azure Information Protection, we can scan and classify the files in the cloud. Let's say one of your users have put a critical HIPAA-sensitive file to the cloud. Cloud App Security can scan the cloud applications used, classify that file, apply protection, and that includes encryption. How do we do this? We have a control menu where you can set granular policies to control data in the cloud, either automated or based on the file level. And you can either use out-of-the-box policies we have, or you can create a custom one. Then you can create policy enforcement. You can do this automatically. And this helps you to comply with the critical compliance policies. We know GDPR coming into effect in May, as well as there are other key regulations like HIPAA, PCI, or SOX that may be applicable to the industry that you work in. This helps you to get peace of mind as you get more information about the cloud applications, as you get to prevent the data loss. You can also have the option for native protection. At any point in time, when you see a file transacted in a cloud application, you can go ahead and you can manually apply protection, and that includes encryption, as well as classification labels. And you can apply classification labels automatically. Here is an example of a violation against a policy, and as well as some detailed actions that I can take. Like, for instance, I can protect the file, go ahead and apply a label for the file that will travel with that file wherever it goes. As I mentioned earlier, Cloud App Security and Azure Information Protection has a unique integration. Data travels to many locations. It's not only cloud application. It goes to other places in the cloud, to mobile devices, and it's really hard to control where data is going to go. This is why we think that the protection needs to be built into the file itself. We need to either manually or automatically classify a file after creation. With Azure Information Protection, we provide persistent data protection on-premises and in the cloud. When a user creates a file, they can manually classify it based on the information in the file. They can say this file is confidential, and immediately the file will get encrypted based on the template that's used. And Cloud App Security not only reads that label, but also can apply labels when it finds critical information in cloud applications through this unique integration between MCAS and AIP. This means that you can create a policy to automatically scan files, to automatically apply classification labels. It happens all through by creating an easy policy. With Azure Information Protection, also, you can do automatic classification. Either user can classify the document, and if you don't trust the users at all time, because they may make some mistakes as well, IT admins can have automatic labeling policies where they can scan, classify, and apply classification labels. Classification labels are not only protection or encryption, but it also has the use rights. So it has an RMS template attached to it. So with one click, you can create a label, and that includes all the use rights as well as protection. And through the unique integration of Cloud App Security and AIP, we can make sure that this protection extends to the cloud applications as well. You can see how a file is protected with AIP, and this is directly from the CAS console. And the different options that I have for specific files that I see transacted in cloud applications. This is the beauty of Cloud App Security. It's so granular. Once you deploy the cloud applications, you can see all the different activities users are doing, even like failed login attempts. So let's talk about some use case scenarios. How does this become real in my environment? I want to protect and control data in cloud applications. I want to block the download of confidential files from an unmanaged device. I want to automatically classify confidential files in cloud applications. And I want to protect the download of confidential files from risky sessions. So in the first scenario, we have a user who's in a finance team, in Contoso finance team, and he's based in London. And he has a file that has been classified as internal by Azure Information Protection. Well, internal in this case, it's an RMS template on it, but it doesn't have any encryption attached to it. User uploads this file to a public share and accidentally makes the link private. Unfortunately, it happens more than not. A lot of times when users are sharing links or sharing documents with other coworkers, they make the link public to everyone. And that's a problem. Well, Cloud App Security actually can find that. We see that there's a critical file that has been identified as internal, but it went to a public link. You can take an automatic action, or you can take a manual action here, where the admin is going to move this file into quarantine, and then reach out to the user and give them an alert that they shouldn't be doing this next time around. So this is a great way to catch up some of the user mistakes, completely done innocently, but can harm by causing data loss in the organization. The second scenario is blocking download of confidential files in cloud applications. In this scenario, we see most of the conditions that user is coming from is all right, but we see that the device that user is coming from is not managed by the organization. So the risk of decision is not low, it's not high, somewhere in between. In this case, Cloud App Security Proxy is going to be doing the in-session control. So we can see that when the user wants to download a critical application, it is blocked in a situation, as you can see. The user can download the non-confidential file, but he cannot download the confidential file to this unmanaged device. And this is done through the integration of Azure Active Directory and Microsoft Cloud App Security. Another good scenario is how we can automatically classify and protect confidential files in cloud applications through the integration of Azure Information Protection and Microsoft Cloud App Security. Here's a common scenario in marketing. We can see that there is a marketing manager. All the conditions that the user is coming from is good. The session risk is low, coming from a managed device. Again, routed through Cloud App Security proxy, uploading a document to Box, but not necessarily classifying the file. So this is a scenario, let's say the user is uploading a HIPAA-sensitive file or a regulation-sensitive file, and it goes to the cloud application, so no issues here. But Cloud App Security will go ahead, through policy, scan all the files in Box, classify the sensitive information that is identified by using classification engine, and then automatically apply labels. You see this file is protected now. So when we see another user, the vendor that the marketing manager is working with, trying to access this application from an unfamiliar IP address with a medium session risk, we see that actually he will be able to access the non-confidential file, but we will see that the file that he's going to receive for a confidential file is going to be protected at download. This means that a label is going to be applied to it. This is a very powerful scenario because this is protecting us from several user mistakes and give peace of mind when it comes to key regulations. So last piece is threat protection. Microsoft Cloud App Security's threat detection is enhanced with Microsoft's Intelligence Security Graph. Microsoft has vast amount of security intelligence coming from a variety of different cloud and on-premises services. We have more than 200 global cloud consumer and commercial services across the board. We scan 1.2 billion devices every month. We analyze 200 billion emails every month. We have 300 billion monthly authentications through Azure Active Directory. We have data coming from Digital Crimes Unit. All of these signals all together form Microsoft Intelligence Security Graph. We use this intelligence ourselves to identify cybersecurity attacks in our organization. And we make this intelligence available to our customers by embedding the intelligence to our key security solutions. As I said earlier, cloud applications are as vulnerable as on-premises when it comes to cybersecurity attacks. Just because they're not on-premises, we should just forget about the threats that we may receive from there. We use behavioral analytics to help assess the risk in each transaction. We watch every single activity that users do with cloud applications, failed logins, what type of data that they have uploaded and downloaded, what type of device, even the browser type that they're using. And then we assess the risk in every single transaction that user has with that SaaS application. Do we see mass file transfers? Do we see any suspicious activities like impossible travel? If the user is logging in from 2 different locations within an hour, that is in what we call, let's say, from Europe and United States at the same time, which we call an impossible travel situation. We can detect that. We can detect ransomware. We can detect suspicious logins when user is coming from an unmanaged device, an unfamiliar IP. We pay specific attention to admin accounts because when the attackers access an admin account, then the attack kill chain is really short from there. They can access critical information right away. Cloud App Security uses sophisticated behavioral analytics and machine learning technologies to identify possible threats in cloud applications. We assess risk in each transaction and identify anomalies in the cloud environment. We provide you useful insights for users, files, activities, and location logs. We also enhance our intelligence with behavioral analytics. We create a profile for each user to make sure that we can identify some anomalies. If a user is normally logging in from a certain location with certain number of devices, it's from coming from a certain IP, and suddenly accessing from several different devices, logging in from multiple countries, coming from unfamiliar IPs, that may be indication of a breach. You would think that actually credit card companies do this with theft detection. That's basic theft detection that they do when there is an anomaly with our credit card accounts. Cloud App Security uses sophisticated behavioral analytics and machine learning technologies to identify any anomalies. Here you see a general anomaly detection, where there are some anomalies with specific user activity. And once you identify these alerts, we also provide advanced investigation and remediation. You can gain useful insights by drilling into the user for the file or the activity. We give you such granular information when you want to do an investigation. You can specifically drill on an IP, for instance. You can customize detections based on your findings. We also integrate with your SIEM solution because we know that you want to see everything in a single pane of glass, and if security information and event management console is a single pane of glass for you, we integrate with that. We already have an agent that integrates with your SIEM solution. And we also provide you a single-click remediation. Do you want to, disconnect that user or remove this user's collaboration? You can do that directly from the alert itself. You can see more details of this alert and the type of activities or actions you can take as remediation. All right, let's move to the demo environment and let's see Cloud App Security in action. Here I am in Cloud App Security console in the portal. I'm in General Dashboard where I can see the aggregated activities, the alerts, activity matches, as well as activity maps where the activities are taking place. I want to drill down. First, I want to start with Discovery. Let's go to Discovery Dashboard. Here I can see all of the different applications that are identified in my organization, the users, IP addresses, and the traffic that goes into them. You can see the different app categories as well as discovered applications. When you drill into them, actually you can see what percent of the traffic is going to sanctioned applications or blocked, or I should say unsanctioned applications in your organization. You can see there are some discovery alerts. There are some threat detection alerts that I have actually caught through discovery, and suspicious user alerts as well. I can see what percent of the traffic is going to which risk level. And I can see my top users. In this case, there is no log anonymization feature applied, so I can see my users. But now I'll go to discovered applications to see risk assessment. I want to understand how risky these applications are for my organization. And here, for instance, let's click on Microsoft Online Services, and I can see the risk scoring, or I should say risk assessment score, which is a score from 1 to 10. You can see it here. 10 being that this application is actually not risky at all, 1 being really risky. So I can make a decision based on the score whether I want to sanction or unsanction this application. You can see all the different risk score elements here. General, security, and compliance. For instance, this application supports multi-factor authentication. It has perfect compliance with all different regulations out there. And we recently added a GDPR readiness assessment. Our engineering team went and combed through the entire Cloud App catalog to find whether the SaaS provider has a public statement about their GDPR readiness, because GDPR hasn't come into effect yet. There is not a regulatory body to tell whether you're compliant or not, but there is at least a link that we can provide that will help you to make a decision to sanction or unsanction this application. This intelligence is very unique. Our research team constantly updates this information, and this really helps you to sanction or unsanction the application. You make an educated guess, and we use the same methodology for every single app. So you don't have, for instance, some of our competitors do crowdsourcing, which may be or may not be reliable, whereas we use the same parameters every single time when we are identifying the risk assessment score. So let's click on another application. Let's click on Salesforce. I would like to see how much traffic is going in. This is the ongoing analytics part. This is important because, as I said earlier, if a user is uploading and downloading terabytes of data within a couple transactions, that may be indication of an anomaly. And I would like to make sure that I catch that. and this will populate here in a second. You can see users, total traffic, active source IP addresses, the number of transactions, the download and the upload traffic, and all the granular information you need regarding the specific SaaS application. So this is all the discovery dashboard. We also talked about policies, and we also talked about how we can control access to these applications. Let's go to control policies. This is where I set the policies. I can use out-of-the-box policies, or I can customize and create my own. In this case, we talked about conditional access. So what I will do, you can see there's access policy, there's session policy. I'll click on the session policy. You can see I created a couple different policies here. It's block download of sensitive files. Let me click on this. This is the conditional access scenario that we have discussed earlier. Let's see what this policy looks like. And as well as you can see, I can edit session policy here if I wanted to make some changes. Blocking download of sensitive files. You can see if the device is not compliant, it's not domain joined. So pretty much if the device is not managed, then if there's a file that includes social security numbers in it, and we can be that granular, then you say, block the download of this application to this device. And also send an alert to our admins so they have visibility into this. But this happens automatically. That's the beauty of it. So let's go back. Let's take a look at protect download of unclassified files. I'll click on this one. This is the second proxy scenario where we get the benefit of Azure Information Protection integration, where we automatically classify files before download. Protect download of unclassified files. Again, device tag says that this user, the device is not managed. And if the classification label doesn't equal to specific classification labels that doesn't include encryption, then not only I have two options of allowing and blocking access, now I have an option for protection. Yes, you can download the file, but it's going to have encryption and you have to have the right credential to access those. And you also get a customized block message, and also you can send an alert about this. You can see this gets so granular. And we also have the alerts engine, which is a threat detection engine. Everything shows up in alerts, like from policy violations, from general anomaly detection to suspicious activities. You see, for instance, here, I see block download of sensitive files. This is the violation against the policy that I have set. And I see a variety of different alerts, anonymously shared files, so cloud discovery automatic upload errors. So we have a variety of different alerts within the portal. And you can click any of them to gain more information. So let's click on a policy. Let's click on General Anomaly Detection. So for instance, I click on multiple failed login attempts. In this case, Arbel, one of the users, is having 8 failed login attempts to Microsoft Cloud App Security. Well, it's just a lot. So you can see how granular this is in terms of which IP the user is coming from, the device that they're coming from, even the browser that they're using. This is super powerful because I have such granular information. And now I can take an action. You can see here, whether I want to suspend this user, whether it requires a user to sign in again. So, or I can remove users' collaboration in box. This gets super granular that I can take an action directly. And it's so good that because I can see everything. And if, you can do this through alerts, but you can also investigate activity logs. You can investigate files. You can investigate user accounts. And you can see all the other different report options that we have and app permissions that we have. So that is how Cloud App Security in a nutshell in the console. It's a super easy product to navigate. The user interface is very intuitive. So why we think we are different? First of all, in order to do the discovery analysis, we don't use any agents on user devices. Agents on user devices sounds like a great idea, but unfortunately it doesn't really work in practice. Hypothetically, it's good, but we see that it's really dependent on whether that agent is deployed or not. And a lot of times it doesn't really provide the full picture of your organization's SaaS application usage. Agentless discovery gives us a great idea what type of applications are being used. The second piece is the fact that we have very unique integration with Azure Information Protection. We're the only service out there that actually can apply labels. We're not only talking about encryption, we're talking about use rights. We're talking about that classification label that you can apply. Another key feature that we have is the fact that we can actually detect ransomware. That's very important because we know ransomware attacks could be really annoying and could be really dangerous for your organization because it will cause data loss. We have a very unique integration with Azure Active Directory. We're directly integrated in the console, so you can limit access by using reverse proxy. And you can mitigate threats by using Microsoft Intelligence Security Graph. Our threat intelligence is enhanced with machine learning, with behavioral analytics, and not only by Cloud App Security, but it gets the feed from Intelligence Security Graph. So if Azure Active Directory finds a suspicious IP, we benefit from that. If Digital Crimes finds any anomalies or blacklisted accounts, we get a benefit from that. And that's an amazing security intelligence that we have across the company. We're very proud of our solution, and we think that we should provide you a free trial so you can see it and experience it yourself. We provide a 90-day free trial, so we strongly encourage you to go to aka.ms/mcast-trial to try Cloud App Security and experience it yourself. That brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for your time. For more information, please visit microsoft.com/EMS. Thank you.